Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sound Off Sports. I'm your host, Mike Davis. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be breaking down the Davante Adams trade as he's shipped out of Las Vegas, headed to New York to be with his old buddy, Aaron Rodgers. Plus, we're going to be talking about Deshaun Watson. Coach Kevin Stefanski is backing him, saying he gives the Browns the best chance to win. It's hard to believe. We're going to be breaking it all down, hearing what you have to say. SOS starts right now.
Make some noise. This is Sound Off Sports, sponsored by Sam & Ash.
Hello. Welcome to Sound Off Sports. I'm your host, Mike Davis, joined right now by my main man, James Edward Barrickman. The fourth, James, haircut looking good.
Thank you, sir.
Pink dress shirt looking good.
I get cleaned up from time to time.
I love it. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the NFL. Obviously, we're going to start with this big Davante Adams trade. A lot of fans saw this happening. He's been on that injury report, not playing, maybe a lot of turmoil and tension going on within the organization and him. But now Davante Adams is being shipped out to the New York Jets. He's going to team up again with his old buddy, Aaron Rodgers, who he played with in Green Bay. A-Raj is super happy about this. Davante's happy about this. The question is, what does this mean, though, for the Raiders franchise? We asked everybody at home, we asked you guys what you felt about this decision and what it really means for the state of the silver and black. James, let's kick this off right off the bat. Let's hear what somebody had to say about this trade.
I just think that's the biggest mistake the Raiders could actually have done, traded him to the New York Jets. So, in my perspective, I think the Raiders are going to go downhill for the rest of the season.
All right, thank you so much for giving us a buzz, John. Listen, so John says it's the worst thing that this organization could have done.
I don't know how you could come to that conclusion if you're John.
He must be a super big Davante Adams fan. And listen, from his perspective, let's identify kind of where he's coming from. Yes. If John's thinking this team is competing and trying to win today, that is the worst thing they could have done.
In which case, John needs to check himself because they're not close to that.
And he might be, a hopeless romantic when it comes to this team and what
football.
They can really do in terms of even making the playoffs. But I think obviously this is a move that GM Tom Telesco has made, and it's an admission that the Raiders cannot compete for a Super Bowl right now. And I don't think, if you think that, then you got to get your eyes checked because they just can't, frankly, right now. And the truth is, in today's NFL, in competitive, professional sports, in the landscape, the worst thing you can do, you tell me this all the time, James, the worst thing you can do is be in no man's land, is be in the middle.
Yeah, you can't be in the middle.
Not be, the worst team, but not being the best team, and you're not really in a position to get a high draft pick. You're not in a position to go to the playoffs. You're in no man's land, and that's the worst place to be. And GM Tom Telesco is going to start trading away assets so they can start thinking more future.
This is the Raiders' opportunity to finally get that quarterback that they've been missing since Derek Carr. Obviously, players, coaches, they don't tank. They never will because they're constantly putting out tape for their next job. But if you are Mark Davis or, these higher-ups within the Raiders organization, you should be praying that you lose as many games as possible this year because you cannot keep going forward year after year with quarterbacks like Jimmy Garoppolo, like Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, Jarrett Stidham. We've seen a gamut since they got rid of Derek Carr, let him go.
Let's hear, we got another voicemail from somebody. Let's hear what someone else has to say at home. I believe we spoke to John first. Let's hear what Dave has to say.
Now, as far as Davante Adams going to New York, Jets playoff hopes are alive now. First, second round, no AFC Championship game. My bad, game for sure. First or second round, they'll make no AFC Championship game.
I am joined right now by a very impressive human being. We got Jeremy Newman, the president right now of Kismet. We're also going to say it's Keep It Simple make it fun. We also have Nevada Outdoor Adventures. There's a lot of different things for this. We're all talking about the 6th annual golf tournament coming up this weekend at Wild Horse Golf Club. But Jeremy, it's great to be with you. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, you're the president of this great organization. Tell us a little bit about what I like saying Kismith. Sure. I think it sounds fun, but Nevada Outdoor Adventures might be more telling. Tell us what this whole foundation is really about.
Thanks, Mike. The Kismith was created as a way in which to bridge a gap that was clearly happening here in Nevada, not just in Las Vegas, where giving individuals with any form of disability an opportunity to participate in outdoor activities. And that's really what we do. And in creating these opportunities for these adventures, it really is exciting, especially for the people that have a disability and have never done anything outside.
And let's talk about your history and your past, because I do think there's a magic to being outside in nature. Totally. And you're a guy, you have a great tan. We were talking about that off air, but it's because you meditate a lot outside. You spend a lot of time outside. And for a lot of people who have gone through tough situations, circumstances, they might be paralyzed, they might be handicapped, whatever it is, to them, I'm assuming they must feel a lot of the time, my ability to interact with the outdoors is now going to be limited. So this is a great organization, what you're doing, because you're bridging that gap for so many people.
Totally. And that's a great point. I hit the ground skydiving at 100 miles an hour. And while I was in the hospital, I had friends and coworkers coming to the hospital and encouraging me to come back to work as a strength coach. And I thought, how the heck am I going to do that? And we'll figure it out. And that was kind of like how I began to live my life. I came right back to work after I got out of the hospital for being there for 2.5 months. And I went right back to work. And then I became a wheelchair athlete.
9 months after this accident, you were back competing in triathlons all over the globe.
I wasn't competing in 9 months, but yes, you
were training.
I definitely was training, and I started doing 5K and 10K races locally just to kind of get myself together.
Let's talk about this accident, because this occurred back in 1997.
Correct.
You were skydiving. I'm assuming you had a zest for the thrill of life, right?
That would be putting it mildly, yes. And to be clear for your listeners, it wasn't an accident.
Tell us what happened that day, if you don't mind.
I was, in a nutshell, I was racing another skydiver to the ground, and I won.
And take us to that moment. What is that? Do you remember what it feels like?
I remember everything, yeah.
What does it feel like?
Well, okay. So I'm assuming you're asking me, what does it feel like when I hit the ground?
Yes.
Or, okay, got it.
Well, both.
Well,
what does it feel like?
Okay,
because I would never skydive because I'm terrified of exactly what happened to you.
What happened to me is something that I caused to happen. I'll break it down real simply. I was racing another skydiver to the ground who was much more experienced than I was. He had a smaller canopy than I did. I was much more of a beginner. I only had a couple hundred jumps. He had several thousand. And once we were under we jumped out at 13,000 feet. We did our little routine in the air, and then at 2,000 feet, we tracked away from one another and opened up our parachutes. And we're descending toward the drop zone under canopy. And it became very clear to me that he was moving faster through the air than I was, and I wasn't having that. So I did a very dangerous thing. You know how like your ceiling is composed of these tiles? That's the same thing. A parachute is composed of chambers. And I reached up and collapsed the outside lines of the chamber and made my canopy smaller. I refer to that as ego malfunction number 1. Ego malfunction number 2 was once the canopy was a little smaller, I felt like I wasn't going fast enough. And I tried to collapse the next set of cells, which in turn collapsed my entire canopy, and I'm now coming down like Wile E. Coyote under a streamer.
God.
We're taught to immediately cut away and pull your reserve chute in the event of a total malfunction like this. Well, one of many things that you and your listeners don't know about me, when I was a child, I was picked on by bullies because I had buck teeth, I had pimples, and I was chubby, and so I got picked on a lot. And you didn't want to be my friend because if you were my friend, you got picked on too. So I was kind of ostracized as a kid. And I knew that anyone that came down at the drop zone under a reserve, everyone would say, what happened? Why'd you have to pull your reserve? And oftentimes people would get ostracized because they were doing something dangerous, unsafe, whatever, and they would say, don't jump with him because he's unsafe. So I'm like, okay. I knew in those milliseconds that this was happening. I was assessing everything. I knew that I needed to pull the reserve chute, but I also knew that if I did, I would likely face that same kind of scrutiny.
For the full interview with Jeremy, make sure you go to our YouTube page. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to Sound Off Sports, everybody. So now we're going to be talking about the most hated man in the NFL, potentially the most hated man in professional sports currently. That is Deshaun Watson. We all know the history with him and the sexual assault allegations and him having to settle a lot of cases outside of court, having to pay a fine to the NFL, a lot of different stuff that's not a good look. But the bottom line is this is a guy who was traded from the Texans to the Browns and had signed a $230 million deal. It was the richest in NFL history. It was the first and only time a contract has been fully guaranteed to that level, to that extent. And Andrew Berry, the GM there with the Browns, is really in a tight pickle, and so is head coach Kevin Stefanski, who's a two-time Coach of the Year winner. So he's a tremendous coach. It's a team that had a lot of good momentum last year, but they can't find their footing this season. James, as we're talking about Deshaun Watson right now, the fascinating thing is his play has been it's almost remarkable how awful it has been for a guy who has fallen off the face of the earth. This was a tremendous quarterback at Clemson, a guy who showed so much promise with the Houston Texans in his first go-around, and now he doesn't even look like a capable quarterback.
It's insane. The fall off from what Deshaun Watson was in his final hours in Houston to what he is even when he first started out, his first game in Cleveland, has been something that nobody could have foreseen. And I get it. When you have that many sexual misconduct accusations, that have been settled, that sort of thing is going to weigh on your conscience. And I think that has a lot to do with this, where he's had injury issues in the past, but I think a lot of this has to do with how this suspension, how these accusations, and now the fallout of all of this has weighed on him probably mentally, and I think that is the main reason why we have seen such a fall off. It's remarkable.
Here's what I want to say: who gives a crap about what's weighing on this dude?
No question. That's not what I'm saying.
But I'm just saying, let's talk about what's weighing on the program now. What's weighing on the franchise as a whole because of his actions, outside of football. That is the crazy thing, is now a team that was in the playoffs that had a tremendous kind of flow last year with Joe Flacco, and you got a really good roster.
And why didn't you try to retain Joe Flacco the way he played down the stretch?
Doesn't make any sense. Now you have a backup quarterback in Jameis Winston, who I would roll with. Who
everybody wants to see
Watson.
Play.
But let's hear what people at home are having to say about this, because I know people want to definitely give their 2 cents on the Deshaun Watson issue.
Hey, Mike Davis. Big fan, man. Big fan. Deshaun Watson does not give Cleveland the best chance to win. Cleveland does not have a team. Nick Chubb is still on IR. Amari Cooper is going to Buffalo. Barely even hear Jerry Jeudy's name. Barely even see David Njoku.
This is really a story that it exemplifies the mental toughness that it takes to be an elite athlete, because the off-the-field issues have just completely sunken this guy's ability to do anything. And there's a lot of athletes who have off-the-field issues, and it doesn't matter. We've seen it with your boy, Antonio Brown. We've seen it with,
ABs weren't this serious.
But there's people that have.
Granted, he had
distractions,
right?
And we listen. We got
AB had some things, but
we don't know how much what is true, what's not
level.
true. Accusations, things settle outside of court. There's accusers still coming out of the woodwork right now.
There was one that came out just
recently.
In September, and this is a point I wanted to make, where you have this new accuser came out September 2024. Best case scenario for Cleveland, he gets suspended. Deshaun Watson does. That way, they can void his guarantees in starting in 2025.
Yeah, I mean
that is best case scenario for Cleveland. So if you're the Browns organization, are you almost like take a look at this guy?
No, you want him to go to prison.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he gets suspended, that's best case scenario for the entire organization.
100%. I would be if I was the owner of the Browns, if I was Kevin Stefanski, I'd hire a private eye to try to get him imprisoned. That's just the facts. I think even Andrew
That
Brandt,
would be the biggest bailout for the Cleveland.
Let's hear what another person had to say, though, because we have a lot of callers with this stuff.
With quarterback Watson, to me, that's going to be a 50-50 chance. Still too early. We're only going into 7 weeks of football. But I really don't even see a chance of Watson taking his team to the Super Bowl this year.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to Sound Off Sports. Mike Davis here. So it's kind of funny. I'm walking into the office the other day, million things going on. And my good buddy, my pal, my teammate over here, producer James Edward Barrickman IV, he's all excited about this thing he sees online regarding quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's not about their production. It's not about how, their analytics, next-gen stats. It has nothing to do with any of those types of things. It has nothing to do with, eye test football guy stuff. No. He's consumed with the sexiest quarterbacks in the NFL. This is the topic he wanted to use as we're entering into sink or swim right now, James. So what consumed you so much with this?
Before we get into this, I would like to give a big shout out to our editor, Jess, for putting me onto this list. In the first place.
I think he was excited.
I'm glad that she put me onto this. I've been intrigued by this entire list, and I have a lot of questions. If you're ready to hear this top 12.
So there's a top 12. So okay, which outlet is doing this?
This is from People.
Okay, so People magazine. They always do, Sexiest Man of the Year covers.
Right.
That's something that they do. So they put together a list of the 12 sexiest quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. Can you guess who number 1 is?
Joe Burrow.
Yes, number 1. Let's go down this list.
Okay.
All right? So number 1, you have Joe Burrow. Okay, that's an easy one. That's a layup.
We all know that.
Number 2, Caleb Williams, who I thought was a surprise. And we'll read this whole list off, and then I'll give my thoughts about this list. Russell Wilson, number 3.
Okay.
Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, number 4. Justin Herbert, Chargers quarterback, number 5. Number 6, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers quarterback at number 7. Josh Allen, Bills quarterback at number 8. Jalen Hurts, number 9. Derek Carr, 10. Jordan Love, 11. Joe Flacco, 12. So, if I may.
12. All right, listen. Audubon Joe, I love Joe Flacco. There's not a bigger Joe Flacco fan than me. He's not one of the 12 sexiest quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm just going to
What is Caleb Williams doing on this list?
He's
at
top
2?
12. He's top 12. There's people on that
Why?
list. There's people on that list that should not be on the list.
It's not. My biggest gripe with this is that Jalen Hurts is number 9.
He's hot.
You can name
8
better looking quarterbacks than Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is good looking.
I'll give you Joe Burrow at 1. But Jalen Hurts shouldn't be any lower on this list than number 2. Who's better looking than Jalen Hurts other than Joe Burrow?
No Aaron Rodgers either.
That makes sense.
You think?
Yeah, I don't think Rodgers would be on that list.
Interesting. All right, listen, this is the stuff that we talk about. We don't.
Tua?
Is Tua is he?
Tua's not on the list.
Is he a good? You think he's?
I think Tua's a good looking dude. What's funny about that?
No, I haven't really. I just kind of know who's obvious to me. Hurts, Burrow. It makes sense. They're, Wilson. Those are guys that are next level looking guys. So I haven't really been doing my power rankings. We want to thank Dave, John, all the great people at home that gave us a buzz. Listen, if you want to call us and tell us who you think the hottest quarterback in the NFL is, feel free to do that, because this is going to be now a running joke probably throughout the show and the course of its history. So give us a buzz, and make sure you follow us on social media, on Facebook at Fox 5 Vegas, because we're going to be always posting great topics, and we always want to hear from you here.
Jared Goff, sorry, not to totally interrupt you. No Jared Goff. I'm as you're sitting here talking about it, there's no Jared Goff on this list, and that's another one. But here, I'll let you finish up. We'll send this thing off.
No. Jared Goff is a good-looking guy. You love his wife or his fiance.
Yeah, Kristen Harper. She's amazing.
Oh, you just know.
I follow her on Instagram.
Do you see how he knows that name? Like, boom.
I follow her on Instagram. That's
what we should do. The Wags power rankings.
The Wags?
Wives and girlfriends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the NFL Brittany Mahomes. You start ranking all those types of people.
We could bring in,
Taylor Swift. You put everybody in the mix. Sierra.
It's a good idea. Yeah, it's a great idea.
We'll
have to do that one of these days. We'll bring in maybe Mariah and Paloma can come in and help us out with that one.
They can rank us. We can do that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sound Off Sports. For my co-host, James Edward Barrickman, the fourth, Jared Goff's lover. I'm Mike Davis. We can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you next time here in the Den at Fox 5 Studios.